Bishop, Michael Burbage of Raleigh, every year calls us priests on our birthdays, and he chose to call right in between Mass, and he asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm getting ready for my third Mass. He said, third Mass? He goes, I give you permission to give a short homily. And I said, yeah, thanks. Anyway, there was a group who tried to trip up God. They were scientists and biologists who thought they found the secret of life. And they decided to tell God that he was no longer needed. They said that they could create life also. God said, well, I created life from a handful of dirt. They said, we could too. Then they picked up a handful of dirt and started to show God what they could do. And God said, no, 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 no. Wait a minute. Create your own dirt. The Pharisees and the Herodians, normally bitter enemies, came together in the gospel today to try and trip up Jesus. And they started with their saccharine, sugary flattery. We know that you're a truthful man. We know that you don't value anybody's opinion. And Jesus called them out for what they were. Hypocrites, I know you're looking for something. You're looking to trip me up. And then they posed that wonderful question, is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar? Well, the census tax was something that everyone from the age of 14 to 65 had to pay all the time. Those ages familiar to you, 14 to 65, are our Lenten regulations for fasting and abstinence, believe it or not. Small world. They had to pay it. They asked him if it were lawful to pay it. And of course, they knew the answer. They were just trying to say, well, he was going to side with one group, of course, pay the Roman tax, and all of the Jewish people would be up in arms, or don't pay the Roman tax, and all the Romans would be after it. He says, repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. But he asks them first to produce a coin. Again, Jesus trying to trip them up. The coin had the face of Caesar, but not only the face of Caesar, it also had an inscription that referred to Caesar as the Son of God. Oh my God. Hypocrisy, idolatry for one of those Jews to hand Jesus the coin proved that they were already breaking the law. So he says, pay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And then he adds that wonderful phrase, and pay to God what belongs to God. Now, how does that affect us? Repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Repay to the government what belongs to the government. And you all know what that is. I'll give you a hint. Federal, state, local. Tax, that's right. We always need to pay the tax, just like the Jews and all the Romans had to pay that tax, because if they didn't pay it, guess what would happen? The Romans would come after them, just like the IRS would come after you and me. That's the way it was. But then he puts that beautiful phrase, and then we pay to God what belongs to God. I ask, what belongs to God? Anybody? How about everything? Everything belongs to God. Any of you familiar with St. Ignatius of Loyola? Wonderful saint. He wrote this prayer called Suscipe in Latin, which means receive. And here are the words. Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, all my freedom, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will, all I have and call my own. He says, you have given go back to that coin that paid the temple tax, the census tax. Whose image was on that coin? Caesar. Was stamped and imprinted on that coin. Whose image is imprinted on each one of us? God. We are created in the image and likeness of God. Right? So that everything we say, everything we do, no matter where we go, no matter who we speak to, we are representing the image of God to them. And how awful is it that we choose sinfulness sometimes, that we are selfish, that we gossip, that we do things that we know aren't according to the will of God. We show that marred, dirty image of God to others. My brothers and sisters, all of us are created in the image of God. I believe we grow in the likeness of God by trying to follow in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, by being more Christ-like, by being more forgiving, turning the other cheek, by being more compassionate and understanding and patient. You know that we always pray for patience, and God gives us people and things to be patient about. We know that's true. We try to be the image of God and bear His likeness to the world, because everything is God's. All that we are, all that we have, everything that you possess. Cyrus, in the first reading, a pagan king who was doing God's will, even though he didn't know it, was God's. Caesar was God's. Ludicrous was God's, is God's. Everything